Hey everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Steam Machine Podcast. You're getting a double dose this week. My name is Dalton, and joining me is our resident JRPG expert, your friend and mine. Everybody say hello to Mr. James Pfister. Wow, I can't talk. James Fisher. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. I always like a double dose anytime we can get it, and always excited to come back on the podcast and talk some JRPG goodness. Although this week, I think we're going to be a little limited in what we can really talk about with this game.
Yeah. It was funny when I was after this. Like, I had finished it, I was like, all right, I'm going to immediately go watch an overview of the story so I can kind of recache everything that just happened. Because there was a lot. One of the videos on YouTube says, Trails in the Sky FC, the 40-hour prologue. And I was
I saw that. I was like, that's the perfect analogy to this game.
It really is, dude. It really is. Now, first and foremost, I know about this series because of you, and the JRPG Report. Shout out everybody listening to this. Go listen to the JRPG Report.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And you came into it a bit differently than me, and you kind of guided the way that I'm playing this series. So if you kind of want to give an overview of how you discovered it, what got you into it, and then we can kind of touch on how you influenced the way that I'm going to play this series.
Thank you. That that's always been one of the goals of the podcast, anyways, to maybe shine some light on games that because everybody knows about the Final Fantasies and Dragon Quest and Personas of the world, and we all love those, tales of too. But I like to shine a light on different games, and in particular, the Trails of Legend of Heroes line has really picked up steam. And for me, I got in with The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel. So obviously that's a little bit different than the series that we're talking about. Cold Steel just started, I want to say the first one was like 6-7 years ago, maybe even longer now, but it came out on PS3, and that was my starting point. And I kind of feel that's the way it was for a lot of players. You've got some OG guys that came in with Sky, but yeah, I kind of just learned about it on a whim. I think I even just saw it on Amazon one time. I was like, this game looks kind of promising, and added to the cart. Kind of took a whim and loved it, and then found out, oh, by the way, it's almost as if one of these kids watches the prequels of Star Wars, right?
Yeah,
and then they learn that there's a whole there's 3 additional movies that they need to watch before that, and they get excited about it. That's very much now with playing Cold Steel, you learn that there's 5 games that you need to play before that to really get the full story. And I played Cold Steel. I think I actually played 1, 2, and 3, and then went back and played Trails in the Sky first and second chapter. Full disclosure, I've only made it halfway through the third one. Maybe we can talk about that a bit as well. So 4 and 5 are what's called the Crossbell arc, and they've actually never been properly localized. Their Geofront is working on bringing those PC over, but if you play on a console, there's actually no way of playing those 2 games, which is that really irksome.
I do have the Crossbill series on my PC, fan translated, but it's definitely not easy to get now, or as of right now. It took me quite a bit of digging.
It's finally come. It is finally coming. They're going to localize it next year. I think we're getting in 2022. We're getting the first one, and then the second one the year after. But yeah, it's been a long time coming for people to get the full story.
Now, those are called Trails of Azure and Trails of Zero, correct?
Yes, that is true.
Okay, and Reverie is the new chapter.
So Trails into Reverie is the newest one that is coming, Hajimari no Kiseki, as it's known. And then there's Kuro no Kiseki, which is actually the newest one that just came out in Japan. So after you beat all 4 Cold Steel, you've got 2 more after that have yet to be localized. So there's these are not short games. The one you just played is the shortest one. So there you go.
Yeah, and it was I think I put in about 50 hours into it total.
Okay, yeah, that's baby steps. By the time you get to Cold Steel 3 and 4, you're talking about over 100 hour, Persona 5 level games in total.
I'm all for it, dude. Like, a lot of people scoff at long games, and I am so the opposite. I'm just like, and I don't know, it's probably because I have a lot of free time at the moment, but
it does make a difference.
I'm just like, man, I like a game that I can chip away at, and there's lots to discover. Like going to Trails in the Sky. Like, I didn't do it as often as I would like, but one of the coolest things I thought was that the NPC dialogue changes after every major event.
Absolutely, it's fantastic. You can really dive into.
I thought that was really cool. So you started with Cold Steel 1, and then went back to Sky. So how did that affect your view on the story? Because I know that a lot of the stuff that happens in Sky is referenced later on.
It is, but at the same time, they're completely separate stories. So luckily, so by the time you get to Cold Steel 4 is when Sky reconnects with the series, so to speak. So that's when those characters kind of come back and the story connects to it. So it really didn't affect it too much. Cold Steel 1 and 2 are standalone, right? So it helps to know the story before, but it's not really connected. Part 3 of Cold Steel connects with the Crossbell arc, and then Part 4 connects with the Sky trilogy. So the only thing I felt like is I really gained a much deeper knowledge by playing it that way. I wish I could have played them in order, but I don't really feel like it affected in so much as there's a handful of characters that, you're going to recognize right away playing it in the order that I did and be like, oh, so it does ruin a few things, and I will try my best not to do that today. But since you know the whole story, it's kind of like, oh, well, this is not a really surprise, or I see that I know what's going to happen here. However, there are still tons of shocking moments and revelations and knowledge gained by playing it that way. And I don't feel like the only way I would say not to do it is to play all 4 Cold Steel and then go back and play. You are going to have a lot ruined that way. But if at all possible, and you've got a PC able of playing the Sky games, it will help you out greatly to play those, at least the first 2.
I know my heart warmed the day that you sent me that a little GIF of, I believe it's Estelle from Cold Steel 4, and I was like, yeah, there she is. Look at her in all her actual 3D glory.
Oh, it's fantastic. Like, obviously there's a few years difference. I think 4-ish or 5 years in between, those adventures. So she's grown up a little bit as well. And yeah, just seeing her in full 3D and how well she plays in Cold Steel 4 is a true treat, especially if you've experienced the Sky trilogy, to know her character. And I mean, literally one of the best characters in JRPG history, easy.
Oh man, I completely agree with you. When I went through Sky, and this made Nate go, wow. I told him, I said, I really enjoyed the aesthetic of the game, the way it looked. It really struck a note with me. Then the story started getting pretty good, and I was like, all right, this is going to be a pretty decent game. And then the ending happened, which we'll get to. And there was a moment I jumped up out of my chair, super happy, and then immediately sat back down and went, what? What? And my eyes started tearing up. And this game brought me to tears. And I'm like, I have to put this game up there with Persona 5 and Dragon Quest 11, because those are the only 2 other games that I can think of recently that have brought me to tears, as far as being that attached to the story. So that's
incredible.
I was just like, holy shit, dude. It's so good.
Now, I'm a man, so I've never cried at anything ever before. So I don't know what you're talking about. No, as close to tears as one could possibly come. That is, wedding day, the birth of your child, and trails trails in the sky. That's the only times you'll ever cry. But no, it's like you get so invested in this game over such a short period of time. Like I feel like it doesn't really waste your time at all. It is just bang, 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 bang. There's really no downtime in it. It being a shorter game helps, but you love the characters, you love the world, you love the story that it tells, and it grips you and it doesn't let go, which very few games can really do that. I love Persona 5 and Dragon Quest 11, but those are long games. And so your interest is going to wane in a little bit as you get longer involved. But yeah, once you get in with the bright kids, there's no getting out.
Yeah, and starting off with like them at the house and everything, and Cassius brings home Joshua. I loved that. Like one of the first things Estelle says is, "You brought me a present. Why is my present a boy?"
Boy.
Like I even got an achievement for completing the prologue. That's what it's called. Why is my present a boy? And that just cracked me up.
Why is it a boy? Yeah, because they're at that point when he comes home, I guess they're 11, something like that.
Yeah, something.
It's young, right? So by the time the story really gets going, they're 16 and coming of age. But yeah, I mean, can you imagine? Like my daughter's going to be 8. I can't imagine bringing home a boy to her. That'd be insane. So it's a very natural reaction. Estelle, that is just her to a T. Her reaction to things, and as a dad myself, like I immediately connect with Cassius, and it's cool to see because that typically in games we're dealing with high school kids, maybe even younger sometimes. So it's actually kind of refreshing to see a character like Cassius as a father. He's dealt. You'll learn a whole bunch more of what he's dealt with in his life and what Estelle's gone through as well. But it's refreshing to see a story like that in games and something you can connect to on a different level,
as opposed to like say Persona, where it's usually like you get sent off somewhere else to go stay with somebody that's not your parents, and then the game happens. But
Persona, everybody's tragic backstory, like nobody has a parent, right?
Yeah.
Who's raising all these kids? I don't know, but
yeah, man, like it's just the way it develops and stuff. Like I know for the show we've already touched on like chapters 1 and 2, so I'll just kind of briefly go over them. But like in chapter 1, I believe is where you go to Bose and you're doing all this stuff around there, and the Sky Bandits. I thought
the Capula gang. Yeah,
that was a cool arc. It didn't go where I was expecting, and that was the first like, what the fuck is going on here? When the Sky Captain kind of like all of a sudden's like, what's going on here? What do you mean we hijacked the what do you mean we hijacked the plane? And all you're like, oh, what's going on with this?
It was very intriguing. As Sky Bandits obviously is another JRPG staple. You've got to have some, but they're not your usual Sky Bandits. There's something else going on there, and like the leader. So it's Josette, Kyle, and the leader's Dawn, right, or Dom?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, so it's like like what is going on here? You don't know. There's tons of those moments of you just don't quite know what's going on. There's a bigger story being told, and that was fun. Raiding the Sky Bandits, and rescuing the day. And where's your dad at? Like, right? Where is Cassius? What's he doing?
Now, I believe it's in chapter 1 where you get introduced to one of my favorite characters of the game, and I might ask you to spoil something for me.
I'll try my best.
Only because I have a hunch and I need to know, right?
Okay.
And don't worry, it's not about Josh or anything like that. I know that there's major things about him. So, in chapter 1, you meet Olivier. And he is fucking hilarious.
He's best, yes.
He absolutely cracks me up. The interactions between him and the party, especially Estelle, kept me laughing anytime he was on screen. Later on, you find out that he's from the Erebonian Empire, and they seem very protective over him, which makes me feel like maybe he is a Chloe situation.
Ah, okay. So what do you know about Chloe?
So in chapter 2, whenever you meet Chloe, it's not revealed quite yet that what's going on with her. But you help her save the orphanage and things that me and Willie touched on. I'm trying to remember who actually burned down the orphanage. Was it the oh, you don't really know, do you? It's like the Royal Army. Later on you find that out, but at that time I don't think you know like who did it or anything. But you do save the kids. That was my first oh shit moment. Yeah. Was when the orphanage was burning down with the kids and that lady inside. I was like,
yeah, that's real, man.
Oh my god. But luckily Agate was there to save the day.
Agate's pretty cool.
He is an asshole, but he's cool.
Yeah. So you're making some connections that, like I said, I don't want to ruin anything, but yeah, those are both protected characters, and it doesn't take too much to figure out who Olivier really is. But let's just say he's not necessarily a traveling bard, but
yeah, that's all I basically wanted to know, is that I got the feeling that he wasn't being exactly forthcoming.
Yeah, well, I mean, and Sharia, she finds him out pretty soon, so who he is, you don't have to search very hard on the internet, so be careful.
Oh, okay, yeah, will do. Now moving into chapter 3, around in chapter 3 is where me and Willie left off. Like once you have Tita,
okay,
and you're having to deal with the oh god, what were their names? The bandits that were in the waterfront district. Agate used to be their leader.
The gang, it escapes me who you're talking about, but yeah,
the gang. Just they're like the street gang for that city, which I believe is Rouen.
Rouen, yeah, and the mayor and all that fun stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so it ends up turning out that oh, you know what? It was, now that I think about it, it was the mayor and his buddy in the end who ends up being the ones that burned down the orphanage, because they wanted to use that land to build luxury homes for the Duke.
Oh man.
Oh god.
Talking about Duke. Grade A-holes, right?
he just he was the epitome of those dudes that I just would not want to be around.
No, he needs a good Estelle smacking with a stick upside the head.
Yes, which I did give him later in the game, which was fucking satisfying.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, basically, Dean Duke is just or Duke Dean, whatever his name is. He's just an absolute rich, snooty, snobby, gets what he wants because he has all the money. Has probably never heard the word no in his life. Just one of those guys. And every time he's on screen, I feel for his butler.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I loved his butler.
His butler should have quit a long time ago, but I guess, it's a royal position. They're hard to come by. So,
yeah.
But, he's not atypical. He's next in line to be king. So you don't sympathize with him at all, but that's just the way those guys are, I guess. They're ruthless. Yeah,
and gosh, man, if I was that in that world and that was going to be our king, I'd be like, oh Lord.
First off, you don't necessarily want to live in a place that has a king, because those usually don't go well. But yeah. I think I'd move over to Arabonia. It's a little bit different, even though there's still a king, but different circumstance.
Yeah, but not that guy. Look,
no, not like that.
But the main thing that you start seeing is that when you end up catching the mayor, he doesn't remember what happened.
No, he's got a similar thing going on.
So there's this really weird dynamic going on in the game where you're playing through all these, but there's this underlying story of what's really going on here. And
yeah, and that scene with the mayor where he pulls out the artifact that freezes you, but then the artifact that Cassius gave you, or not necessarily gave you, but that you opened, they react to each other. There's some big things going on that you're not necessarily privy to.
Yeah, the Black Orbment, and it's in chapter 3 that you kind of start studying that and try to figure out what the hell it does. And they're like, you take it to Tita's grandpa, who's the crazy old professor guy,
Professor Russell. Yeah, he's a key figure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the more they talked about that guy, the more I was like, well, damn, isn't he Einstein?
You're scratching the surface of big things in the story later on. Like it's so remarkable. And just to speak on for a second, like,
yeah, go for it.
The amount of lore in this one game alone is insane. And like what they connect over 9 games is going to blow your mind in terms of the story being told, and the amount of information out there. It's truly insane how they connect it all.
Yeah, I look forward to it, man, because I always love those little, oh, that's referencing this from that game. Oh, like, I love that. So, yeah, 9 games worth of that. I'm with it.
You're not going to understand it all. There's no way. Like, you could write a college thesis on it and not even come close.
Hey, man, gives me more to try to learn and decipher. It'll be great.
Absolutely, yeah. Before we go, what's your plan? Like, so how are you going to play these? Like, just every time one comes up, do you play the next one?
So basically how I plan on playing it is because, like, we had talked about, I was going to play the order of the games because you had said, that, you recommended playing them in the order. So, but I did tell Willie, like, I don't know if I can go more than a year without playing the second chapter because I don't want to forget all of that stuff. You know what I mean? So,
you don't want to forget that emotion. I mean, if it was me, and I did because I was lucky enough to play them back to back, I didn't waste any time. Like, I dived right into second chapter. But you do what you got to do. I guess you're at the limitations of your podcast, but maybe rig the voting a little bit. Yeah, well, I don't know.
We talked about, like, if say Trails of Cold Steel comes up as a choice on the the vote, then I'm just going to put in SC instead because, we want to, like I said, we want to do them in the order. But it'll probably be one of those games where I'm like, all right, it's I feel like it's Trails time. You know what I mean? Because
yes,
I don't want to wait. Like I said, I don't want to wait super long. I want to experience that second half and really finish up that story. That way, like...
And that is truly what it is. Like, obviously there's a third, but that's a different game. Like, second chapter is called that for a reason, and you need to play them back to back.
Yeah, and I honestly, I have thought about playing it in my own time, and then going back and brushing up on it when it comes up for the show.
I wouldn't fault you if you did, because the way one ends, I mean, how can you wait?
Yeah, and we're gonna get to that relatively soon. So you wrap up chapter 3, you save Ruan, you end up having to try to rescue Professor Russell. You do, then he ends up splitting off with Agate. At this point, you realize that there's some shit going down, with some people in the army. I believe it's the Royal Army, because it's Colonel Richard?
Colonel Richard,
yeah. And
yes.
Captain Amalia or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. You first meet Richard, like, hey, maybe not so bad.
No, dude, the first time I met him and Amalia, I said, this is a JRPG and they're too good. There's something off about them. Right? It's the same feeling that I had in Persona 4 with the detective cop guy.
Yeah, you nailed that.
And I was
right
like,
away.
and I think that was only because I had played Persona 5. And I was like, all right, so this is kind of similar. I see where they're going with this, but I wasn't quite sure how this game was going to do it. But I got a bad feeling about that dude or his Amalia, whatever, his right hand.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
I knew something was up with one of them. And I hate to say this, I assumed it would be her because she had a very menacing face.
She did. She kind of had that resting bitch face, right?
Yeah, which was drawn really well. Yeah, so I kind of figured something was up with those guys, and then turns out, that they're basically attempting a coup on the queen, which you find out more about in chapter 4. And like, I'm not really trying to go through this beat by beat, so we can kind of broadly brush around. Yeah. But like, it ends up being that the Royal Army's trying to take over. Duke Dunnan, whatever his name is in cahoots with Colonel Richard trying to take over the queen's throne, because the queen wanted the princess to be in charge, and that just didn't fly. Now, the princess, I cannot remember. Is it Claudia? Princess Claudia? Okay.
Claudia, yes.
Princess Claudia. You keep hearing about her, and you keep hearing about her. I had an inkling as to who she may be just from some cutscenes earlier in the game. But once Joshua and Estelle figure out who Princess Claudia is, you all realize that it is your good buddy Chloe is actually Princess Claudia.
Yeah, they don't do a great job of hiding that. That when you're talking about the mayor and she sends the message via the Falcon, and all of a sudden the Royal Army shows up.
Yeah,
right. I mean, it didn't take too much intuition to figure that one out. But I thought that was really cool that you get to meet the princess that way. And, it's one of those deals like, in reality, Claudia is not ready to be queen. Like, she's not, but surely the Duke is not either. So at least she has potential to be a good queen. This Duke guy would be the worst king in history. He'd get overthrown by his own people.
Yeah, it's like she would have the knowledge and probably like the I'll just call it the queenness about her to grow into the role and learn everything she needs to learn, whereas that Duke guy has already gone past all the learning stages of life, where he's just like, it's my money and I need it now.
Basically, it's my throne. Give it to me now and get out of here, you old bag. But
one of the scenes that stuck out to me with him was when you are infiltrating the what was it? The Royal Villa Estate. Yes.
Yeah.
And you go in there, and he's in there, or it might have been in the Royal Castle where you I'm sorry. This is in the Royal Castle, because this is when you and Joshua, Estelle and Joshua are dressed as maids.
Yes.
Dude, he looks at Estelle like, you're going to be servicing me tonight. And she's
absolutely.
Like, I don't want to bring him tea. And Josh is like, I don't think he means tea.
There's some other implications going on there. That's Trails does that very well over its history of never outright saying things like that, but implications, yes.
Yeah. Well, that was where it felt real good eventually, when you get into that fight with Duke Dunnan and his guards, and Duke's just running around the battle not trying to fight.
It's classic. It's so funny.
The perfect moment. It was like one of my perfect moments in gaming, where he was doing that and I wanted revenge on him, and I had Shirazard in my party, and she had S-Break. So I was like, oh yeah, he's getting sadist whip. So I went over there, and she was like, you've been a naughty boy, and just started whipping the shit out of him. And it was wonderful. And at the end of the fight, he's like laying on the ground like somebody had beat his ass. And the butler comes over and he's like, is he okay? And Shirazard's like,
no, he's not.
She's like, he's not even hurt. He just fainted at the thought that someone would lay a hand on him. Which, that's just fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. But yeah, you actually did beat him down pretty good. But
so
that was well worth it. How many times do we get to see Joshua in drag in this game, right?
Hey, he makes a pretty lady.
Oh, yeah, and Olivier, that's so funny. I don't know, is that in this game or in the next one? Olivier finds out that Joshua was the princess, and like he gets like all flustered about thinking about it, in the play. It's a funny moment.
That's probably in the second chapter, but I look forward to that because that sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it very much like, I can't believe I missed that. Oh, really? Type deal.
Yeah, I think it was Willie was saying that he felt refreshed by Olivier because Olivier's so just like, I want to be sexual with everyone kind of guy. It's like, it's very, and I mean, people were kind of like put off by it, but like not as much as some other games. So I thought that was kind of nice that like he's weird and most people accept him other than Estelle and Joshua kind of give him the weird eye, but they're young. You know what I mean?
He's that beautiful weirdness that somehow grows on you into love.
I loved Willie's reaction to Olivier. He's like, he was a cool character, I liked him and everything, and then we got into battle and he pulled out a fucking gun and I was like, yeah.
And his arts are amazing. Like, he's a very vital
I believe he's the first one that gives you a really good, like his S break hits more than one enemy, so like that's super helpful there in the beginning.
Yeah, that's very. I guess Estelle can with the hurricane, whatever. But yeah, S breaks are your best friends. That's for sure.
I will say we haven't talked about him yet, but in chapter 3, I think, is when you first meet him. In chapter 4, he becomes vital, and that is Zen. Now
the immovable mountain. Yes.
By the time you played this, was his name Zen?
Yeah, I guess the translation had went over to Zen instead of Zing.
It was Zane.
Zane, that's so it was originally it was Zane, right?
Yeah, so it was a mistranslation. So the original translation, it was supposed to be something along the lines of Zen, but they named him Zane. And then Falcom was basically like, Xseed, his name is Zen, and they're like,
come on,
all right, and they went in and they patched it and fixed it.
I guess that was on the PSP version. He was probably called Zane then.
Yes, I believe so. Okay. Now, he does not look like a Zane to me. So
no,
I'm glad that the name was changed because when I saw his name was Zen, I was like, oh, okay, that makes, I don't know why, that just makes sense. But if his name would have been Zane, I'd been like, he doesn't look like a Zane, but all right.
No, not at all. Like Zen, you think like yin and yang, Zen, that type of deal, and he has that aura to him, so it made perfect sense. But Zane, I don't know what that implies, but it's not him.
He is also the largest man in the entire game.
By far.
Dude, that guy is like the Big Show compared to everybody else.
Yeah, he's a big guy, and that doesn't really change. Like, even by the time you get to the newer games, he's still the biggest dude out there.
Like, if I had to guess, I would bet he's probably 6'6", 300-pound brick shithouse. Just
absolutely,
just massive.
Big Show was a pretty good analogy. Like, he looks like a professional wrestler out here, or a football player next to just high school kids, right? Because even Agate's a big dude, but he looks like half the size.
Agate is younger than I thought he would be. Like, for some reason, I figured that he would be in his like mid to late 20s, and it seems like he's not too much older than Estelle and Joshua, maybe like 20.
Yeah, he's going to be very too much old for a certain aspect that will come up in the future. But yeah,
okay. So. Zen, going back to him really quick, when I first met him, I don't know why I did not, like, senior bracer, like S-rank bracer was not what first came to mind. My first came to my mind is like, oh, this guy's like a farmer that I'm going to have to do some quests for later. And he's probably got a Zen garden because his name is Zen.
Something like that, or he's the town drunk. I don't know.
Something. He just seemed like he would be a very happy-go-lucky character, which he was, but no, it turns out he's a complete badass.
No, it turns out he's one of the four 4 S-rank bracers in the world. So I'm like, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal.
He's in that tournament by himself against 4 people, and he just wrecks all 4 of them. I'm like, all right, this dude's what's up.
He's like, I got this. Don't worry. You're with me.
But in the end, you figure out that there is a royal coup going on. The royal army is trying to stage some sort of, I'll call it an attack. Mm-hmm. But they want to put somebody in office that they can control, or I guess into the royal seat, not the office. But there's this big. They start calling the Black Orbment the gospel. There's this guy. So there's these people that you're chasing throughout the whole game that are in these like black suits and masks. And there's one who wears a red mask type thing. And Joshua like semi-recognizes this dude's face, even though you can only see the bottom half of it. He's like, I know him from somewhere, but he can't place where, right? So as you're going, you realize that these guys are really the ones that you're worried about.
Yes.
They're kind of controlling things from behind the scenes, if that makes any sense. You end up fighting him to save the queen. Now,
yes.
How'd that go? I got an achievement for beating him.
Very good. I commend you then.
Brother, it took damn near every item I had and S-breaks galore, but I was able to beat him by the skin of my teeth.
Color me impressed. I didn't even try, I'll be honest. Like, I could tell right away it was not a fight that I could do easily, and I kind of just wanted to experience it. That's kind of me to a T in games anymore, is if it's a challenge, I just want to experience the game.
Oh, brother.
But that is very well done, sir.
When I play Skyrim, first thing I do, give myself 5,000 carry weight, make myself have 1,000 HP, stamina, and magicka instead of 100. I feel you. It's like, I want to enjoy the story. I don't give a fuck about challenge. Like,
oh no, it's easy mode. Let's go.
Yeah, if a game's got a story mode, I'm gonna play story mode. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, they invented story mode for me. I love it.
So, but the big thing about that fight is he takes his mask off, and you're able to see his face, which loops back around. Once you save the queen, you kind of get everybody back together, and there's this triumphant scene where you're having this showdown. With, I believe it was Amalia.
Yes.
And like all your other party members start coming in. Because, and I think this is before you go save the queen. Everybody pops into this room and helps you save all of the captured people. And that's where you plan to go save the queen from there once you get that. Because then you've got the royal guard helping you because they were framed. And there's so much political intrigue that goes on during this game towards the end.
A lot, yeah.
That I was hooked at this point. Like, oh shit, what is going on here? Because like
it feels so epic, like you're really a part of it.
Yeah, like Final Fantasy 12 is a good example of a game that I was like, this is pretty good. And then the political intrigue kicked up and I was like, oh shit, what's going on here?
That's a good parallel. Yeah. Very well done.
So, like, you save the queen, and everybody's standing around and talking. And this is where it got to, I couldn't put the controller down, and I had to finish the game. There wasn't much of it left, luckily. But
no.
You save the queen, things are put back into order, everyone's standing around talking. Estelle brings up that he had taken his mask off during that fight. And Josh is like, he took his mask off. And Estelle's like, yeah, and then describes what he looks like. And Josh's face is just kind of like, oh my God. Like he remembers him, but not enough to piece together, who he is.
Yeah.
So, you keep rolling. There's a little more story beats that happen. And then it's basically the end of the game. You and Estelle are now in Grand Cell, which is the royal city that Chapter 4 takes place in, which is massive. And you're kind of running around enjoying, I believe, the Queen's birthday celebration. Mm-hmm. And you're going around, you go to the little vendors and stuff. I didn't really buy anything because I'm like, this is the end of the game. So like I went and I bought some food that I had eaten before, and I let them eat because I figured that's what they would want to do. And then I took them to the little square where they're supposed to go, and they're supposed to talk. Now, there's been this building tension over the game of Estelle developing feelings for Joshua.
Ew.
Okay, yeah, let's touch on that. So I know that there's a bit of a different look on things in Japan as far as relationships and stuff like that, you know, and I know that this storyline premise, I think, annoyed Willie a little bit because he wasn't into the idea. The way I look at it, they're not blood related. No. They weren't raised together since they were babies. Like, they met each other a few years ago.
Very much different.
And now they're both hitting puberty. And they're going to start...
Well, I guess they would have both... They were already hit... When they met, they were pretty much going through puberty. Now they're 16.
Well, you know what I mean. 16, like those...
Yeah.
You start getting emotions. You're like, what's happening in my pants?
There's a lot of those feelings, especially... Yeah.
There's like a lot of going... Like, what's going... Like, what are these feelings? There's butterflies, things like that. And Estelle deals with that throughout the game. One scene that sticks out to me is the scene with her and Tita in the hot tub, or the steam room, where Tita's little innocent ass is just like, "Are y'all married?"
Oh, and Estelle it's so cute.
Which I love Tita, by the way. Tita is an adorable little character.
She is.
And the fact that her S-brake was a minigun was the best thing ever.
Tita is one of my favorite characters that you grow to love. She comes back. Let's put it that way.
Good.
She's going to be around.
I'm glad to hear that. So Josh basically, like, Estelle starts freaking out about basically trying to gather her feelings so she can discuss them with Joshua. And she runs off to go get some ice cream. This is where my head spun. So Professor
it gets crazy.
Professor Alba shows up now.
Oh, Professor!
I don't know if me and Willie touched on this too much, but Professor Alba keeps showing up throughout the game. Like when you find him the first time you go to that tower with Niall and Dorothy.
Yeah, he's on top of the tower, and they're like, "Hey, how did you get through that entire monster infested tower?"
Yeah, like, so that's never really explained. And then he just pops up at the most opportune times, and he shows up this time, and he says something to Joshua, and Joshua stands up and is like, "Hey," and he's basically like, "You've shown up every time something goes down," and even when Kyle, like Kurt, whatever his name was having memory issues, you were right there next to him.
Interesting.
And Josh is like, "I think you're the one behind it all." All of a sudden, Professor Alba goes from the face that you've seen the entire game to like this menacing look.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, so you figured me out?" And he's like, "Well, good. Let me. You don't seem to remember who you are. Let me help you with that." And he basically snaps his fingers, and all of these quick slides flash across the screen. It's like the memories coming back to Joshua because he hasn't really been able to remember that much about his past.
No.
And it comes flooding back, and you learn that he's actually, what was it called? The Black
Fang.
Thank you. Yes. He is actually known as the Black Fang. And he is part of the Jaeger unit that what was his name? The blonde haired, or I'm sorry, the red mask guy. I can't remember his name. It was like Lieutenant something. Him. He was in the same, basically, group as that guy. Mm-hmm. And Joshua was like taken in by Professor Alba when he was really, really young, and then reprogrammed to be a fucking killer. And
yeah, it's pretty heavy stuff.
He drops this shit on him, and then Josh, I don't remember. Yeah, he's still there when Estelle gets back with the ice cream, and then they go for a walk at in the royal palace, I believe.
Yeah, they go up to the top.
Yeah, and Estelle, she wakes up the next day or whatever, or it might be later on. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, they're back at the royal city, and she talks to Scheherazade about how she's in love with Joshua, and Scheherazade's like, "That's about time you admitted it." And Scheherazade reveals,
yes, we all know
it's the worst kept secret the whole game. Yeah.
Yes.
So she's like, all right, I'm gonna go talk to him about it. And at this point, I'm like, all right, this is gonna be the end. It's gonna be happy ever after. Ready to start chapter 2 together. It's gonna be great. And listener, I'm sure you can hear by the tone of my voice that is not what fucking happens.
No, it's not gonna be okay.
So you hear Josh playing harmonica, and you follow the harmonica, and you find him out on this top area in the garden on top of the royal palace. Mm-hmm. Well. She goes up, they start talking. Josh tells her he's finally ready to tell her about his past. And I meant to pull the story up so I could read it, and I completely forgot.
That's okay. People need to experience something, so.
Josh basically lays out that he was a child assassin, and that he has killed a lot of people. And that one day, he was hired to kill a man, a great man, a member of the Royal Army and a high-class now bracer.
Uh-huh.
He was sent to kill Cassius.
Dun.
But as things go, Cassius was too good. As per anything you ever hear about Cassius was too good.
Yes.
And he whooped Joshua's ass.
Yeah.
And then I'm not really sure, like they didn't really explain how the memory thing happened. If they did, I missed it because I was too overwhelmed by what was going on. But Josh's memory basically gets wiped, and Cassius brings him home. And that's where you first meet Joshua, is after he tried to kill Cassius.
That night. Yeah.
So Joshua says that, he has to leave out to go right the wrongs. And Estelle's like, well, take me with you. And he's like, no, I have to do this by myself.
Yeah.
And Estelle, goes on, she's like, Josh, I love you. She's like, just because, you say these things doesn't mean I can just make my feelings go away. I'm in love with you, Joshua. And I'm like, at this point, like, I'm like, yeah, exactly. Oh God. And
what's gonna happen?
And Joshua grabs her, and she's like, Josh, and he kisses her. And I jumped up out of my seat, like, yes, yes,
finally, yes.
And then she says, what's this? And he said, it's a fast acting sedative. And I sat down, and I went, what? And he's like, don't worry, you'll be fine when you wake up. He goes, I have to do this on my own. But Estelle, I've always loved you. I loved you since the minute I met you. And at this point, tears are welling up in my eyes. I wasn't like bawling, crying, but I had the single tear. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
yes.
I'm like, oh my God. And she basically gets to hear that as she falls asleep. And that's the end of the fucking game.
And that's it. Like nothing else. Like roll credits. Like that's how it's going to end.
I'm getting goosebumps right now. Like it just to end the game on that note, and you're like, what?
I mean, think about the balls it takes to do that, right?
Oh, dude.
I can't. I've been trying to think of parallels, like because there's no other game parallels for this series. Like I don't even know another movie that could really pull that off. That ending in particular, like not to count everything you experienced before that, but that ending and the feeling that you have, and then experiencing that and not being able to play second chapter right away, like that'd be crazy.
Yeah, I know. As we're sitting here talking, I'm sitting here going, well, I guess I'm going to play second chapter when we're done here.
You need to because there's so much that you're gonna, and you can, like I said, obviously the games go on for a while, but you do get tons of answers in second chapter that's going to at least bring some resolution to things. And you got to at least find out where's this jackass going, right?
Yeah, that's like so after the credits, or not really the credits, but like after that happens and it comes up and says end and all that, it shows a cutscene of basically what's to come in the second chapter, which is, you know, Estelle setting out to bring Josh home,
Of course.
and then like Joshua trying to figure out, you know, how to solve his past and things like that. And I found it interesting that that cutscene was included in that game, and I understand that they were both already out on PSP or whatever, but I looked into it. Apparently, the Sky trilogy was written as one long game, or like the story was already written out, and
Yeah.
so it makes sense that they ended there, knowing that they already had the second part of the story done and ready to go. So like that kind of, not that it makes it any less ballsy, but it just makes it like, okay, well, at least they knew that it was going somewhere. So it's not like a game that there was no chance of there being a second one. So you would never find out what happened, because, you know, that's happened before with TV shows and video games.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was very much written like a 3-part movie and broken up accordingly.
And I just, man, just that fucking, when Josh told her I've always loved you, and what an ending, bro. Just what an ending.
It's one of the few moments, and it'll stick with you for a long time, how good that game is and how good it ends. Well, I guess good or bad. I mean, it's frustrating, that's for sure. But at the same time, it was wonderful. And oh man, so many more questions you need to find out the answers to, and that I can't reveal much more than what you know now.
Oh, I know, man. I have questions for you that I'm just keeping to myself, because it's like, I don't want to spoil anything, and there's a lot of territory that could be spoiled, I assume.
Yeah, and you'll learn so much in second chapter, but a lot of things don't get resolved until Cold Steel 3. And then 4 kind of puts a bow on that arc, so to speak, and you get even more answers at the end of that. So you've signed up for a long train ride. That's it's a good one. It's a real good one. And most of the people that I know that have tried these games love them and just can't wait for the new ones.
For sure. Yeah, dude, I'm super looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm probably going to start second chapter and just play it in my own time.
There you go.
Just because I got to find out what the fuck happened.
Oh yeah,
And,
you've got to. There's no way.
Even if I play through it, you know, in the next couple of months, and then it pops next year, it's like, okay, well, I can just casually play back through it and refresh my memory, or watch some videos on it, you know, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that would be my approach to it. I mean, I know it's your podcast and that's how you play the game, but I couldn't wait. There was no way I was waiting after that ending to figure out what's going on with.
I will say the only reason I didn't say fuck it, let's just jump right into second chapter, was because Willie was having issues finishing the first one.
Okay, so that makes sense.
And that's just life issues, so, you know, everyone hates those.
I know exactly how that goes.
So once he gets around to finishing it, you know, then we'll talk about bringing the second one up for the show. But I'm trying to give him the benefit of finishing the episode first. Like, I know he won't hear this until he's finished the game. So,
okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, Willie, let's start preparing for second chapter, bud.
Did you like the battle system?
Oh yeah, let's touch on that here at the end. I liked it a lot. It reminded me like a mishmash of like Final Fantasy style turn based with the grid system of like Fire Emblem.
Okay. Yeah.
I've also heard a lot of parallels between Legend of Heroes and Grandia. I don't know if you can touch on that, because I've never played Grandia.
I mean, Grandia's biggest thing is the cancellation. So with a lot of the arts and the crafts in particular, they do have, some of them have cancel abilities, which obviously cancels out the actions of the other team. There's a couple games that touch on that. Grandia is the main one, and it you will get to a point, not so much in one, but you will have to either avoid or cancel attacks in the future to prevent death. And so it just adds another layer to it. I don't typically like grid turn-based games, but this one in particular drew me in, and they improved the formula every single game somehow. Like, they changed something in every single one, and it's always for the better.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you how the battle systems are later on in like the Trails games. Are they still the grid based, or is it
no? So after, I don't know. I think they're still in cross spell. I can't speak for certain, but by the time you get to Cold Steel, at least the grid part is done. It is still in a field, and there's cones and there's areas and stuff, but it's not like individual blocks. They get rid of that part of it, but it's still in essence grid based, but it's not feel like you're moving so many spaces.
Okay, so it's kind of like
your movement is still a thing. Like the higher the movement, the more you can move on the field, and less, but it's not individual squares on the field.
Okay, so it's kind of like Dragon Quest XI, where you can run around, but it's a little more worthy than that, because in Dragon Quest it's just visual.
It has no bearing whatsoever on the game.
But it actually matters in Trails, whereas like very positioning,
it's everything. Like in terms of the way the attacks go with the arts and everything, it introduces it in Sky, and by the time you get into the later ones, it's everything.
Cool, man. Cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed the combat, and like I said in the beginning, the aesthetic of this game, the graphics. There's something that just warmed my heart about it. I love pre-rendered graphics. I don't know why. Maybe it's the time that I grew up in, but like anytime I see those pre-rendered backgrounds and stuff, I'm just like, oh, I'm home.
I didn't play. I played them. Actually, my old PC was capable of playing them on Steam, so those are the only two games I've ever played on Steam, if that says anything. I don't know how they looked on PSP, but I thought I know there was some modifications to the PC version. I thought it was beautiful, especially for a game that came out, 2006? 2005, 2006? Something in that time range. Like, it looks fantastic. I love the look of the game.
Yeah. Two things that or one thing about the game that I really liked, and then one thing that I did that I'm looking forward to is I thought it was interesting that this game came out first on PC in Japan. Then it was released on PC, or then was released on PSP. Then it got bigger on PSP. So then when they released it back over here, they released it on PC.
Yeah.
It's just strange.
It's very odd, especially with the way they are now, because the games come out first on consoles, and then 6 months to a year later, it'll come out in the West and on PC. So that is very, very strange, to say the least. And so obviously you can play this on Steam. You can play if you've got PSP, but you can play it on your Vita as well as a download game. I think I even saw it the other day, like $20. I don't know what it's going for on Steam, but I think that's fairly similar priced.
Yeah, I think it's $20 on Steam for the first one. I think they grow in price as you go up. But one of the things that I did, speaking of Vita, was in Japan, there was a version released called Trails in the Sky FC Evolution and SC Evolution. And they had full voice acting.
That would be cool.
Modders are wonderful people and have gotten it to where you can put the voices from the Vita version into the PC version.
Okay. I wonder if that's with the attacks and everything, or just fully voiced.
Oh, no, it's like when your characters are talking, they have Japanese voice actors.
Interesting, because of course, when they do the crafts and the S breaks, they had their voice on there.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that I wonder if it's the same voices that they got to do in Cold Steel.
I'm not sure. I know the voice of Nile is apparently like a really well-known voice actor in Japan.
And did he pass away? Is that what it was?
I believe he did die.
Yeah. Nile's a character and a half too. So we didn't. We can't possibly touch on half the people in this game, and it's the shortest one.
yeah. Niall and Dorothy were fantastic.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I told Willie that I think Dorothy is the one person that annoys Estelle more than Olivia.
Josette is probably top ranks in that category.
Oh, right, yeah.
But that's there's other reasons for that.
But yeah, so I played through FC without the mods. I remembered them after I had beaten it, so I'm gonna play through SC with the voice mod and see how it goes.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'm not sure if it, I guess it could elevate the experience, but I don't mind reading, and you better not mind reading, because that doesn't change. Like, even with the newer games, it is odd the times it's voice acted and the times that you just got to read.
Yeah, and reading doesn't bother me at all, and like the voice acting is in Japanese anyway, so I'll be reading.
There you go.
Regardless, but yeah, it should add a little flavor to it, and if it annoys me, I'll just take them off.
There you go. That's easy. Eventually, I'm hoping that they choose to remaster these and bring them out to consoles. Like, we've got multiple versions of Cold Steel that they've redone. So if a game series ever needs to get remastered and brought out, it's this one.
Yeah, for sure. I would say at least Trails FC and SC.
Yeah.
And Persona 2 Parts 1 and 2.
At least.
If they could just give me those, I'd be happy.
And we'll talk, I'm sure we'll talk again when we once you get done with second chapter, and then my feelings on part 3.
Yeah, part 3 is it's going to be interesting, because I know that it's kind of like a standalone thing, and it'll be interesting to go to that after the the arc with Estelle and Joshua, to be like, all right, this is new. So it's so weird, because it's vitally connected and yet separate at the same time. Of course.
It's so confusing, and even I got about halfway through it before I just kind of got disinterested in it. But I'm like, man, this is such a weird game. I want to play it, but I don't, and it's weird.
I've read on Reddit that like three has vital information, but it's also skippable if you wanted to skip it. So, but I don't want to, I want to play all the games. That's just the way I am.
The best thing I can say is, if you want to skip it, feel free to, because you're going to learn everything in Cold Steel. If you read all you can find out all that information post if you choose to.
Okay, I got you.
Almost said a word that I didn't mean to say there. I had to stop myself. Not a bad word, but a word.
Spoiler word.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. I'll get there eventually. Like, I'll make the decision when I get there. Like, if I play it and it's not really interesting me, then I'll just like watch an overview and move on.
Okay.
But we'll see how it goes. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on, my brother?
Other than everybody needs to experience these games one way or another. I wish there was a lower barrier. I mean, obviously, I know your crowd is Steam based, but I feel like mine's more console, and I hate that these are not available digitally on a home console. Obviously, it's on the Vita and on the PSP, but
yeah,
it's a crime in my mind that they're not. And Falcom has expressed, President Kondo especially said that he wanted these games available on modern consoles, and yet it still eludes. And that's frustrating to me, because and then they did this as well, like in the West. You can play Cold Steel 3 and 4 on the Switch, but you can't. They're just now getting around to putting 1 and 2 out. That's crazy. Like, you just ruined it.
Yeah, for people coming in and they started with Trails 3, I'm sure that's a lot of info missing.
Yeah, there was a bunch of really dumb reasons for that. But yeah, the people need to experience this story. It'd be like if you watched Lord of the Rings and didn't know what went on in The Hobbit. You should understand that story. It makes a lot more sense that way.
Yeah, that's like coming in at Return of the King.
Yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't have a clue. It'd be pointless, really. You could not appreciate it.
Yeah, I understand that for sure, dude. Well, then, would you like to give your show a little pluggily diddly do?
Yeah, why not? That sounds good. JRPG Report every week, usually on Thursdays, but sometimes some other days. But yeah, we put out a weekly podcast just talking about all the news of the week, talking about trailers and games coming out and all the info covering games. Right now there's no trails to cover, but yeah, check it out. You can listen on any major platform. We do video versions of it on YouTube. You can subscribe over there. If you're watching on Spotify, you can watch or listen, whatever you want to do. That's a new thing that we just started a little while ago. But yeah, check it out, and I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good shit, man. That's where I get all my JRPG news, and I cannot recommend it enough. If you're a fan of this show partly exists because I was listening to the JRPG Report, so I think that everybody should go give it a listen.
And I appreciate it, brother. It's always fun. We'll have you on here real soon. We'll talk all kinds of stuff. And I feel like this was fairly PG-13. We did pretty good on the language on your podcast.
Yeah. I don't know why. Like, I don't know. This game didn't bring out a ton of cuss words in me, other than, I will say, it's fucking good.
There you go. we got an hour into it before it got too bad.
But, I had to throw one in there. Like he said, this game, I recommend it to everybody. It's really quickly climbed up my favorites list, and I'm looking forward to seeing it through to the end, man.
Yeah, if you get a chance, like, it does actually go on sale on Steam from time to time. You can pick up the whole trilogy. That's what I did initially. Usually it's Golden Week is a good time, and then they do like a big in Japan sale every once in a while. But they're not cheap, but you can catch them on sale if you're witty.
Yeah, for sure. My recommendation is to add them to your wish list on Steam, and Steam will tell you anytime that they're on sale.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that's what I recommend. Well, all right, man. Then that'll about do it for this episode of the Steam Machine Podcast, the Steam Machine Extra, if you will. James, thank you so much for joining me, my brother. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to you listeners, we will see you next week for some Full Throttle Remastered. Take it easy.